My name is Piet, which is a very Dutch name that predates the boomer generation. If you Google my name and last name, you get a lot of advertisements for, well, dead old white men. But I'm leaning into the name. I'm getting older, and one day I will join them, but not for now. OK, so the next 20 minutes, what we're going to talk about is, well, migrations to the cloud. So there are some phases in a migration, and I'm going to talk through those phases, highlight what's important, and what you should take home or remember is the broad strokes. So what the things you should be aware of if you are ever so stupid as to do a mass migration to the cloud. So these are the steps. And at the end, we do questions and answers, and then another talk, and then lunch. All right. So just wanted to highlight what this talk is not about, because the last time I did this, someone asked me to migrate their email server or their databases. So this is about software systems, not just infrastructure. It's about cloud migrations, organization-wide, but not cloud transformation. So this is about getting your software into the cloud, but it's not about how you organize around this new way of working. This is about custom applications, not just, he's about transformation. He came for the transformation talk, but this is not it. So this is about custom applications, about migrating your custom software to the cloud, not just your SaaS software off-the-shelf packages. And this is about mass migrations to any cloud. It's not about a single cloud or framework or Kubernetes, but about any cloud. It's a very generic talk. If you didn't want to hear a generic talk, it's a beautiful day outside. So initially, I wanted to use a metaphor during the whole talk. So who here has ever eaten an elephant? So there's 10 people in the back. No, I'm kidding. And who here has eaten a whole elephant? See, no one, because that's a huge task. Eating a whole elephant is a lot of work. So what I wanted to do was to get an elephant here on stage, dead or alive, doesn't matter, and eat it. And while eating, from the trunk to the tail, I would use that as a metaphor for the stages you have in the migration. So I came prepared. I bought a picnic basket here, and unfortunately, when I tried to source the elephant, I got a letter back from artists here in Amsterdam to Piet van Dongen, blah, 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 subject, request for elephant. Dear Mr. van Dongen, we thank you for your interest in our large zoo animal population. Unfortunately, we have no interest in participating in your DevOps Days Amsterdam talk titled Mass Migrations to the Cloud or How to Eat an Elephant. We are unable and unwilling to honor your request for, quote, a whole elephant, dead or alive, whole or partitioned, end quote, now or in the foreseeable future. Due to the security concern caused by your letter and the failed efforts to scale our park's fences as recently registered by a video surveillance system, we regret to inform you we have decided to permanently deny you, and this is a weird thing, I thought we were in a very tolerant city, and your extended family entry to our beloved zoo. Please note that we have notified the proper authorities and our national and international colleagues in an effort to prevent any harm done to global elephant and other large animal populations. Nevertheless, we wish you good luck with your presentation. We hope you will be able to come up with a more fitting and animal-friendly metaphor. Sincerely, Rembrandt Sutorius, Director of Artis Zoo. So thanks for nothing. Yeah. This is non-returnable, by the way, so if anyone wants a picnic. OK, so during the train ride here, I tried to come up with it can be better than an elephant, but another metaphor. So I was thinking, apart from eating an elephant, a journey to the other side of an ocean is also an appropriate metaphor. So what you do there is you try to get from a point where you are now to somewhere on the other side of this huge space, water. And you can plan this, and you can start going, but you always run into unexpected surprises, like huge, dangerous animals, or icebergs, or pirates. So the metaphor here is that you can plan somewhat, but you have to expect surprises, unexpected surprises even. So I'm trying to tell you how to plan far enough ahead to do this successfully. So to do so, first you need a why. So why do you want to migrate to the cloud? If you just want to because it's cool, then that's not a very good reason. Mostly what I see for our clients is that they want to help their users better. So from the point of view of a customer, what they are buying at your company is a better life. So maybe you sell skateboards which are just wood with some sandpaper and wheels, but that's not what people are buying. They are buying a better version of themselves, or maybe a date with some cool guy or girl, or maybe a better image. So that's the mindset you need to have if you want to improve your products. So you are innovating, and innovating is not just thinking really hard about what you're going to do and then doing it. It's about doing a lot of stuff. So like Edison said, if you want to invent a light bulb, you can't just sit, think, and make one. You have to experiment, and then after a lot of failures, at the end you have something that resembles what you initially thought of, maybe, and then it evolves further. So that's what innovation is all about. Looking at innovation from the point of successful innovators, like Amanda explained a few talks ago, you have organizations that can be grouped in less successful and more successful groups. And if you lay them side by side, you see that the elite performers that we were talking about this morning are really good at deploying and implementing changes. They are doing this in a really fast way and really often. And the low performers, which group is shrinking, luckily, they are quite bad at this. And if something goes wrong, these elite performers, they are really good at either rolling back the changes, fixing it, and redeploying it again. So if you look at these groups, these bubbles we saw earlier, it's very similar to a marathon field or a race where a group is very good at this and is leading the pack, and then you have all sorts of people following them, which we can learn from. And the funny thing is that the elite performers are very likely, more likely to use the cloud. And what they also have is a better employee health, more satisfied employee population, and they also are better at controlling their environment. I'm not saying that if you migrate to the cloud, then you magically have a better organization. But if you learn to leverage the power of cloud, then you probably will end up with a more happy, healthy, and controllable organization. So the cloud is something you use to get better at stuff, to focus on your end user and to not do all this management, all this non-differentiating heavy lifting and focusing on the end user. And before I go to the migration part, I want to define the cloud properly. So this is funny, haha, nice sticker. But the actual definition of the cloud, as used in the DevOps reports, is as defined by the National Institute of Technology in the US. So a cloud has on-demand self-service. You should be able to do everything yourself without having to call someone and then waiting a few days instantly. You should be able to access it from anywhere. Resources should be pooled, so it shouldn't matter if you have a huge data center that you're sharing with another company, in essence. You should just be able to use the resources. And you should be able to use a lot of them if necessary, and very little or none if not. So it should be elastic, and you should be able to control what you deployed. So you should be able to get insight into what you're actually using in the cloud. So this is the definition of the cloud. Right, so on to the migration part. So we now know why you should have a why, that you should have a why, and what the cloud means. And now we are going to talk about migrations. So very important. What you need to do is to get the right people, very much so in the start. That will start your journey. So you need some sort of a platform team that will enable development teams or product teams or whatever teams to be able to onboard in this new platform. You need a scaling strategy. So this is, like I said, this is a very generic talk. We could give talks about any of these bullets, but you should have some sort of strategy. You should think about, okay, we're going to start migrating. Are we going to start with 10 teams at one time? Are we going to start small? Do we do a sandbox phase first? you at least have to start talking about this. You need to make sure that people are encouraged to experiment, so they need to feel safe to fail, especially in the beginning, because migrating to a new environment or to different technology, that's always a bit scary, and you will fail a lot, and you will need to fail a lot to innovate. And for that, you have to feel safe to do so. And you have to have a migration team or a group of experts that already know how to use this new platform technology. So from the trenches, so for one of our clients where I did a migration, we deployed a platform team, or they had a platform team where we deployed some cloud experts that helped them create the platform. We had a support team with migration experts that were always online and visitable to help the teams. And then we had the client teams themselves that were tasked with doing the actual migration of their own software. And the good thing about this is that because we communicated a lot and there was some sort of central team that communicated with all these other teams, that we had less bottlenecks than in the original organization. The bad thing is that if you use a platform team, and this was I think, too small sized or maybe not efficient enough platform team, then you get limited by the speed that the platform team has, because they are sort of laying the tracks while you are deploying the train. Okay. So then you have to make a migration plan once you have these teams in place. So you have to justify the migration. So think about the why, think about it well, and properly communicate it. You have to make sure that you know what your current situation is. And even if you think you know what your current situation is, you probably don't know, because I've never done a migration where we didn't not migrate 20% of things that we found in the data center, for example. Or if we wanted to migrate files or storage, then we always ended up with less storage needed than we used in the old data center. So you need to be able to make sure that you know what you are migrating. Now you need to plan it in broad strokes, you don't have to add too much detail, because then you will create a sort of sense of safety that isn't there. You have to plan it broadly and trust the process that once you start, you can iterate on your plan. You have to create a blueprint, especially with custom-built software. If you have a lot of software that's very similar, then it's easy to create a blueprint for a migration. If you have a very heterogeneous landscape, then you have to create several blueprints. And blueprints can be projects or documentation or a wiki page, anything that will help teams speed up the migration. And then it's just a matter of migrating everything to production. Yeah. Okay, so from the trenches, about this assessing the landscape. Same client as I talked about previously. Yeah. So what we did was get all information from every team about what they deployed in their data center, and then do some sort of analysis on the complexity of the applications. Here, the blue dots with a tool from IBM. And then we inventorized or made sure that we knew which applications and databases and queues and message buses were connected to which application, so that we could visualize the landscape. And this made it much easier for teams and program management to assess what part of the landscape should be migrated first, which parts were connected to other parts which were probably more complicated to do, and during the migration see what was still in the data center, the green part, and what was already deployed in the cloud, the gray part. So this helped in communicating about progress and also about the landscape. Okay, and a cloud migration is always a very, there's no single best approach to migrating custom software massively. So if you would pick a few strategies and draw them out, then you have this opportunity axis, the y-axis, with little and a lot of opportunity, and a complexity axis. And what's easy is to not do the migration. That's the easiest part. That's not very complex, but it also gives you no opportunity. You could phase out applications. That is not very complex. You don't have a lot of opportunity. There's some risk here because you need to know that if you phase something out, that it wasn't actually used. I've seen a lot of situations where we switched off something and then, oops, we still use that in production. What you could do is replace everything with new technology, which is not too complex. Sorry, that's not what replace means. I can't remember what it is. I'll talk about it afterwards. Lift and shift is just getting your VMs or containers and deploying them in a very similar but virtual environment. Replatforming means switching the underlying infrastructure or underlying application containers, for example, but keeping the logic, the program logic, intact. And refactoring is just doing everything over, keeping the functionality, but using a lot of new technology, which is very risky, but gives you a lot of opportunity. For example, if you have applications that are vertically scalable, but you need to have them horizontally scalable, then you need to refactor them, which gives you a lot of opportunity, but that's very complex. So roughly speaking, these are the strategies that you can employ while migrating. And what you need to do then, once you have a strategy in place, a why, the teams, then you need to start your migration, not by doing everything at once and not with all teams at once, but the most success I've seen is starting small with a small team, with creative people in them, people that know each other well, that are encouraged to experiment. And once they have some feel for what migration would look like for your company or your clients, then you can upskill. So what helps is mixing that team and putting some members of the first team in other teams, helping them scale up, or maybe use consultants that are experienced here, and then go from a single, creative, relatively slow team to skilled up, faster, less creative, more streamlined, bigger migration teams. Okay, and migrations are very boring. They're basically huge projects with a lot of risk, and you need to know about some principles of program or product management or lean or agile. So one thing that you need to mind is the cone of uncertainty, which we saw in the previous talk as well. So at the beginning, it's really hard to determine how long or how risky your migration will be. But you need to trust the process once you have enough in place to get started. And then keep in mind that once you get going, you get a better grip on the situation, and your uncertainty will decrease over time. Everyone that knows DevOps knows that if you do a lot of things in parallel, then you will fail at a lot of things in parallel. What you want to do is do as little and as small things as possible at once, and then do the next thing. So single piece flow is the optimum. Try to get a single piece flow, or at least limit the amount of things you're doing at once in a team. If you do a huge migration, which you plan and figure out how you will do it, and then do all your migrations at once, you're building up a lot of risk, and you won't know if that risk will pay itself off in the end until you are migrated. So that's very waterfall and very big bang. What you want to do is do your migration, if possible, in smaller iterations. So in the example you saw with all these cells, what you could do there was migrate databases first, or maybe databases and applications and services that were connected first, one by one, making sure applications still in your data center could communicate with the cloud, or maybe they could be autonomously deployed in a group. And then do that, learn from what you just did, learn from the mistakes, learn how the applications behave, try to get a feel for the difference between your old deployment and your new one. And once you learn that, do the next one, and then speed up. That's reducing your risk over time, and it gives you the opportunity to be more agile, to shift your strategy, for example. What's important during a migration, so once you got going and you have done a few applications, then you're metaphorically in the middle of the ocean, and it's really hard to get a sense of progress then, because you can't see where you came from, you can't see where you were going to, and so you should evaluate constantly. You should talk to your people about the status of the migration. You should be very transparent about what you're doing, and you should share your successes and failures so people can learn from each other. What we did at a few of our clients was create a dashboard where we, for each team, we gave them a color. We created some sort of puppet for everything they had to migrate, and then show it on either online or a few years ago on the floor of the company that was doing the migration. So everyone got a sense of the progress of other teams. Maybe if you saw some team going really fast, you could ask them for help, and vice versa. So this creates a shared sense of progress and a team feel. Then, when you're almost migrated, so 80%, everyone will talk about, yeah, we're almost there, it only will take a few more weeks, which it never does. What's important to remember there, that finishing the migration, even if you finish it in a very ugly way, is more important than doing the migration perfectly. So if you have you always have some stuff left at the end that you didn't want to do because it was complex or hairy or risky, and you have a sort of plan in your head how you were going to do this, but you didn't. Just lift and shift this stuff so you can close your old deployment or your data center, and then later you can always, well, re-platform this or maybe refactor this. So there's no shame in just finishing it in an ugly way, because it takes a while before you get to the end, and you always accumulate a lot of technical debt. You have to at least write down what the ugly things you did along the way somewhere, in Jira, for example, or some backlog, so you make sure that you don't forget which corners you cut. So one of the migrations we did, what we saw there was that that we had a platform team that was building the platform along the way, but it didn't speed up as much as we thought they would. And the risk there was, or the consequence there was that we couldn't go as fast during the migration. But once they were done building the platform, we could speed up. I just want to make an animation in Keynote and show it somewhere. Yeah, you can skip this animation. It's a really long train. Look, an elephant. Okay, so once you're done, so you have migrated all your stuff to your new data center, you should reconsider your goal. So migrating feels, if you're finished migrating, it feels like a huge success, which it is. But like I said, you migrate for a reason. And especially at the end of the migration, you need to resurface or better share this reason why you actually did this and look ahead. So migrating is cool, as you can see in this metaphor. So that's good. But then transforming your organization and processes around this new way or these new possibilities, that's hard stuff. So you need to not forget that migration in itself is fairly useless. It's costly and it's very risky, but it gives you opportunity to do something. And that's probably the reason why I migrated in the first place. So you should focus on a short time to value, and you need to shift or at least broaden the scope and remind yourselves that you did this for a business reason. Right, so wrapping up. You need to start migrating with a why. If you don't have a why, don't migrate. You have to make a broad-stroked plan and just start doing the migration, small with a creative team, then scale up. You should share everything you've learned during this migration. You should encourage people to share what they learned, and make sure that everyone from the business side to the operations side joins in. And don't forget to start a transformation, an organizational transformation where you learn to leverage this new platform. So this is the quote everyone uses from Le Petit Prince. It's about You can tell people what they need to do. So if you're sailing the ocean, you could tell a team to build a ship and another one to pack it, another one to sail. But a better way to get at the other side of a huge ocean is to inspire people to get there, get them going, which frees you up for golf and barbecue. Okay, so thank you for listening. Have fun today, and let's follow each other on Twitter.
Thank you so much.